Today I'm going to be working on a project where I'm going to be building a hitch that's going to go into the back of the camper here. So what I've been wanting to do was add one of those carriers to the back of the camper to be able to hold things like the cooler and the grill and possibly maybe a storage container that has things in it, things like that. Just have a little bit more capacity back here for outside storage and free up a little bit of space in the truck or inside the camper there as well. And this will also serve really well for long-term hauls down the road if we're kind of going across country, if we're going Texas out west or something like that. Have a little bit more area back here. So what I learned after getting this camper is that these factory bumpers here, they're not very heavy duty. They're very thin walled. They're very thin walled tube, so they're really not made to hold a lot of weight. You can put these spare tires on there, and I've actually got a bolt-on receiver hitch that goes on there that you can use for holding like your bicycles, and they're okay for that, and we may use that for the bicycles still as well. But I don't want to put a bunch of weight on this bumper and risk the weld starting to tear there where they're welded on. And I got in here and looked, and where these tubes here are welded to the I-beam frame themselves, it's not welded very heavily. So I think if you've got a lot of weight out here that's pushing on this tube, it's going to start bending back here and possibly start breaking these welds. So I want to try to eliminate those kind of problems down the road if we're traveling. I don't want to deal with that if we're somewhere down the highway and things start bending and breaking and I got welds breaking here, so I think the best solution is to try to come in here and tie into the frame itself, which is an I-beam. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's got an I-beam in here, and even the I-beam itself is not very heavily because everything on these campers are made light duty so that it's not so heavy. But there is room underneath here to fasten flat bar. I've got enough room underneath here on the inside for a 2-inch flat bar to come up underneath on both sides there, and then we'll have a cross member welded to that, and then I'm going to have a slip tube in the middle for a standard receiver hitch, 2-inch square receiver hitch there that goes in the middle. So I've got some flat bar, we got some flat bar that's going to go on each side there, and I've got some 2x4 rectangular tubing that's going to go down the center there, and then we've got our slip tube in the middle. All right, and what we will do, let me see if I can get under there and show you what we will do right there. I'm just going to have the flat bar just bolt on right there. I will mark my hole locations. We'll probably have we'll have 2 1/2-inch bolts on each side to where they'll bolt on. This thing will just be able to be removed. That's just the way it needs to be mounted, just like a factory one. So we'll just bolt it on and do that on both sides. So what I was going to say was, instead of fabricating one, I decided to buy one. I believe it was the Kurt brand, and I bought it off Amazon for $125, and it's a 60-inch wide, 60 inches wide, 24 inches deep, and I just didn't want to deal with the buying material and fabricating one for $125. So I think that's going to serve its purpose there. It's supposed to be rated for 500 pounds, and we're just going to put a cooler and a grill and a couple things on there. So that's the plan, and we may go ahead. What I'd like to do is possibly store the bikes up high. I've got a bike rack that somebody gave me that goes in those receiver hitches as well. So the bike rack is supposed to come out and then hold the bikes, but we may modify it so that I have the bike rack coming up this way and then coming out so that the bikes are up here in this unused area there above it. So we're going to continue to make improvements as we work on this, but let's go ahead and start with the receiver hitch first. All right, this is looking at one side underneath here where we got to work with. So there's the factory tube, it's welded on, and this is what I'm talking about. There's just 2 little small tack welds on the bottom there, and then you got a weld on the front seam there, and then these two there. So that's what's holding the bumper on. So we've got this area of the I-beam to work with, and we've got plenty of room for a 2-inch flat bar to fit in here. And then what we've got is from this plate here out to the edge of the bumper, we've got 12 inches. All right, we've got 12 inches there. That's how long I'm going to cut my flat bar. And then we'll have our tube, we'll have our 2x4 rectangular tube in parallel this bumper here. It's going to go across underneath, and I'm going to have it welded. I'm going to have it welded offset on this flat bar, so that we've got room for our U-bolts like this to clear this. And if I want to bolt another one of those, the little receivers up here for the bicycle rack, I need to be able to get these U-bolts on there. So it's going to be hanging down just a little bit below that. These are our materials that we'll be using there. That's going to be our cross member, 2x4 tubing. It's quarter wall. That's a drop that my buddy Joe had at the welding shop. I would have went with 1/8 wall, but that's just a piece that he had on the drop shelf, and he gave me a good deal on it, so we went with that. And then this is a piece of 1/4x2 flat bar. That's what we're going to use there. I mean, that's thicker than the web of the actual I-beam, so we're just going to go with that, and that matches the thickness of the tube. So another drop, so he just gave me a deal on both those pieces right there. And then our so this is going to be our slip tube right here, and I bought this from our local trailer company here, Rob's Hitch Trailer Center. And this is what's going to be welded on the bottom of that piece right there. It'll go on the bottom of that, and it looks like so. Our bolt pattern is going to be 1 inch and then 4 inches from the end where it's bolted in onto the rail. I'll just scribe one of them, and then we'll stack them together in the vise and just drill them both at the same time. We got both of our flat bar brackets clamped to the I-beam there. I've got them measured out where I want them. They're flush with the end of the bumper, and they're surprisingly, they're both measuring the same from this piece back here out. All right, and I've got them level. So we've leveled them because the camper's level too. Always level it out. So they're level this way. So what we're going to do is just go in there with this transfer punch. This is a 1/2 inch transfer punch. I'll go in there like that and transfer punch the 2 holes. Then we'll get in there and drill them. That should be it. By the way, this cheap free tarp that I got from Harbor Freight, the perfect use. Lay it down on this concrete. Now see if I can swing this hammer left-handed. you need is one good hit on it. It's a good sharp punch, so it'll go in there. Alright. There's our pilot hole for one. Problem is just getting enough pressure behind it, push it. Looks like it's working pretty good though. There we go. That did the trick right there. Okay, we got both of the brackets now mounted onto the beams. So now it's onto the cross member, the 2x4 tubing. I'm going to get a good measurement there on what we are center to center and get that piece cut. It is now flooding outside, but I got the holes drilled just in time and the brackets mounted on, so I'm going to go ahead and get this cross member cut. I've done my measurements twice, wrote them down, double checked, and I'm exactly 67 3/4 between the beams, or between the two brackets anyway. So I've got it measured there, and I have given myself just a little bit of clearance there, about a 32nd of an inch. So I've got it where we want to cut it. So I'll go ahead and get this piece cut, and I'm going to just go ahead and wire brush and get it cleaned up while the rain's here. Right now we're dealing with that tropical system that moved out into the Gulf that everybody in the South, especially Louisiana, is going to be dealing with. So this rain's going to be on and off for the next few days. All right, we got our tube cleaned off, hit it with the wire wheel. Also pointed out that I deburred the ends. I always talk about deburring the ends. It's very important that you do that so that you don't cut your fingers when you're having to handle this. Not only your hands, other people's hands too. I wanted to point that up because the other day I was on the road and I happened to see a trailer for sale, and I was curious about that trailer. I stopped and looked at it, and when I was looking at that trailer, there was certain areas of it that I was inspecting, and none of the material pieces that were cut and welded together were deburred. There was sharp, there was still the, you know, the razor edge on it from the bandsaw. There was still those pieces left on some of those pieces of material on that trailer that were just painted over, and I just couldn't believe it. You know, after seeing that, I just completely walked away from it. I wouldn't buy something like that. So always deburr your parts. Just makes for a nicer quality piece. So I'm going to go fit this up and make sure that it fits properly now. I think we've got good fit up there. I've got it. I went ahead and checked the level of the bumper, and it's good and level. And I've got the new Hitch level. I'm using my Armstrong planer jacks to actually hold both sides of the tube in. I used my little floor jack there to kind of move it in there, and I used the planer jacks to get it in there. So I know where I want to weld it onto these. I'm not going to make it flush. I'm actually going to offset it just a little bit, and I'll show you that later on. But I just wanted to make sure that everything was going to fit right, and I wanted to make sure that I had room here for this kind of stuff. So that's why I've got it set right where it's at. So now I know that I can put these U-bolts in there for this, and another hitch there for the bicycle rack. So I'm going to dismantle it now and set it up on the welding table inside and go ahead and weld it up the way I want it, and then I should be able to bolt it on there. We got the left side fixtured up where I want it. We're getting ready to tack it off, making great use of the Fireball tool shop blocks to raise this thing up, because I want to fill it around 3 sides. So I've got it spaced off an 1/8 of an inch on the end of the tube here. We've also got it raised up here, so I got to fill it on the top, and then of course I'll flip it over and we'll have a nice fillet there as well. And then I'm not going to weld the inside, because then that's going to draw the bar into that. So we're just going to have 3 welds. And of course we're using our mini monster square there to hold this nice and square to the beam. This is the flattest table that I have, my welding table here. This is more flat than my roll around table in there. It sits absolutely flat down on that. So that's why I'm using this one right here. So we're going to get the Everlast ready. I'm just going to TIG everything. We'll get in here and we'll tack this off and then get it welded up. Just a little closer shot showing you there. We've got it spaced off an 1/8 of an inch so that we have a nice area to fill that weld bead right there. And of course we'll have it for the top and the bottom there as well. So we'll have a nice place for a fillet there on the top and then on the bottom side. Alright, that one looks pretty decent too. I think we got one side done. I cut me up a couple pieces out of this angle iron, 2x2 by 1/4 angle iron, 1 inch wide. I'm going to stitch them into the corners right there just to give that corner a little bit extra support. I honestly don't feel that what this thing is being used for that it's going to need it, but I'm going to do it anyway just to stiffen the corner up a little bit and to provide a little bit of lateral support over side shifting there. But again, this isn't being used for any substantial weight or pulling trailers or anything like that. It's just to hold a little bit of cargo. But I think that's going to look pretty nice, and there's nothing right here that's going to be in the way that this is going to be in the way. So we're just going to fill those in right there. Square worked perfect, keeping that thing nice and straight while I TIG that on there. All right, we're down to our last component. That's the center slip tube there, and I'm using the mini square there with the tabs. We got it squared up to the side of the tube, clamped down to the tube here, and then pulled up there. Just another great use of the monster square to make the job nice and easy. So we've got it squared up on in the center there to equal 32 7/8 on both sides here. 32 7/8. So we are in the center and we are square. We're square that way because of the monster square. Makes it nice and easy. All right, so we're gonna. I wanted to have a little bit of overhang here in case I want to use one of those. They've got those little anti-rattle clamps that you can put over. It's like a little U-bolt that clamps over this, and it'll come down and keeps the hitch, the receiver that's going in there, from rattling around. So it needs to give you a little bit of room right there for the U-bolt. Actually, I think it goes on this side here, and then it clamps to this. So I just got it overhanging a little bit. I'm just going to blast some tacks on this thing to get it in place, and then I'll probably use my stick welder and just go ahead and run some stitches on there and fill it up. Run some 70/18s. Got the fume extractor on too. That thing up. One pass, that's all we need. I'll clean that up and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. All right, we got it all wire brushed and cleaned up, and I'm going to take it in there on the other table and brush it down with the it's the CRC rust converter, and go ahead and coat it down with that, because this was a rusty bar when I got it. And I'll let it sit overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to spray paint it black. And then once we get it painted, I'll go ahead and get it bolted on there. So I do have another idea for this thing that'll probably come later. It's not going to be right now, but I'm probably going to buy another one of these slip tubes right there. And these are about, I think it was like 24 bucks out the door down at the Hitch Center. So I'm thinking about, I had an idea a while back, and I already mentioned this on a previous video. I'd like to have a vise mounted on the back of the camper. And I thought it'd be nice to have a nice classic or vise, something like this, but you really don't want something like that really out in the weather, and it's more likely something like that might get stolen. I might get one of those Wilton all-terrain vices. It's more of a light duty, you know, they're made to go onto a trailer hitch like this, and get one of those vices and use that on this hitch right here. And so I could probably take another one of these slip tubes and weld it. I would weld it to this end over here and have it so that I could mount that vise to the back of the camper whenever I wanted to. So that's an idea that I'm kicking around, but I'm not going to do it now because I don't know how everything is going to line up on this hitch at this time. So I'm just going to wait on that. And I don't have one in my hands. I'll just wait, but I'm probably going to take this back off and weld another one of those on there at another time. So anyway, I'm real happy with how everything looks. The welds look nice. Stick welds look good there. So I'm gonna go get it coated. I'll bring you back later and show you how it looks. All right, we got the first coat of the rust converter on there. It's already turning nice and black. Gonna let that flash off, and we're gonna put one more coat on there. That's this stuff right here. CRC rust converter. Works really good for bare metal. It's a great primer, but you can also use it just to coat metal down and to keep it from rusting if you don't want to paint on it as well. But we're using it as a primer and to get rid of the rust that's on it. Fresh coat of paint, looking good. I was doing some test fitting with the cargo carrier there. I went ahead and took the spare tire holder off because this right here is just going to be too low with the tire sitting on it. So I think what I'm going to do is rebuild this guy right here. And I don't like the quality of this anyway. I mean, look at the welds on this thing, just look absolutely horrible, just garbage. And it's paper thin. I know everything has to be very light on these campers, but it's just so thin. So I'm probably just going to kind of copy this design, but just make it taller so that whenever it's mounted, I'll mount it on the bumper, but it'll just be moved over a little bit. I just need the tire up a little bit higher to clear the rack. And then I'm also gonna custom mount. See, I got a bike rack here as well that was given to us, and I want to utilize this. I'm probably going to do some cutting up of this thing and modifying it. And what I'd like to do is be able to mount the two bicycles on the back of the camper as well, and mount them kind of up here above everything. So I'm still trying to figure out how I want to utilize that as well. I don't know if I'm going to hook to that bumper or mount to the bumper that I welded together and it's going to mount on there, but that's what I'm still figuring out. I'm just waiting on the paint to dry so I can get the receiver, the new hitch mounted on there, and start figuring out how everything is going to be laid out on the back here. All right, I got it mounted back up in there. I didn't really have any issues at all. Everything fit just like it should. I just set it on those blocks there and used my jacks to level it. I stuck that pry bar in there and got the hole centered up, put the bolts in and tightened it up. Everything fit just like it's supposed to. It looks good. It looks like it matches the back of the camper just the way I wanted it. I'm getting my tools cleaned up and I'll see how this new receiver or the carrier fits and looks on the back now. All right, there she is mounted up. Looks like it's going to do the job just fine. Everything's centered up. It looks good, nice and level. So how about we step in it? I think it's going to do just fine. I'm going to pull my cooler out, set it in there, see how it looks. We might see how the other accessories look on it before I finish it out. I'm happy with the results though. Well, there we go. That's what it's going to look like when it's loaded up with my cooler and my grill. Maybe some other things laid in there with it too. Of course, I'll strap everything down. I did buy a cargo net to put on that, but as tall as the pit barrel is, the cargo net really doesn't do anything. So I'll just use some ratchet straps to hold everything down like it should. And then I'd said also that I've got a big cargo bag that lays in there that you can use when you're traveling. If you want to put luggage and things like that, it keeps it out of the weather. Because I plan on using this for other road trips on the back of the pickup as well, to give us a little bit more cargo area. But I'm happy with it, and I went ahead and bolted on my other bumper hitch right there as well, because I'm going to use that one and modify the bicycle rack so that it comes up here, and then we'll have the bikes up here up top. That's my plan anyway. Hopefully that'll work. I'm going to use this guy right here. This is what was given to us right there. So I'll just modify that piece where we'll have a custom hitch that comes vertically up and have the bikes up high above this cargo right there. That'll be another project for another time though. I'll let you see how that turns out whenever I get to that.